friends, family, colleagues, members of the judicial and executive branch, I say good morning to you and welcome. On behalf of the family of Penny Feuerzeig and the members of the Hebrew congregation, we welcome you this morning to join in prayer, song, and remembrances of our dear friend and longtime member, Henry Feuerzeig. My name is Katina Koulianos, and I'll be leading the service today, with participation from close friends and family, and musical accompaniment by Chanel Schaefer. Rabbi Margolis is out of the country. We do not use a prayer book for this service, but 2 prayers and some readings can be found in the program you received at the door. I've also been asked to remind folks that arrived early that the book you signed may have been the synagogue's book and not the guest book for the family. So if you came in early, sign the new one on your way out, please. Thank you. Okay, we'll begin the service now. Okay. May God forever remember Hank, who has gone to his eternal rest. May he be at one with the one who is life eternal. May the beauty of his life shine forevermore, and may our lives bring honor to his memory. Death has taken Hank from us. We grieve in a darkened world. In our silence, there is lamentation. In our tears, there is loneliness. Lost in sorrow, may we find the presence of you, eternal our God, with us. We are all destined to die. We share it with all who ever lived, with all who ever will be. Cry for the dead, hide not your grief. Do not restrain your mourning, but remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory be a source of peace, and be consoled when the soul departs. Mourning is a time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. With the recitation of psalms, prayers, and poems, we link Hank's life with the millennia-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. From Ecclesiastes we read, "For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance." The gifts of spirit our loved ones gave us cannot be measured, nor can they be lost or even tarnished by time. Even in our darkest hours, we know that some of their light and their warmth will always be with us, bringing comfort and courage, and in the fullness of time, healing and peace. Our God and God of our ancestors, we come today to give thanks for the gift of Hank's life, for the years we shared with him, the good we saw in him, and the love we received from him. We thank you that he is at rest in your loving care and trust in your promise of life without end. When memories are sad and painful, hold us gently in your hand. When memories are sweet and joyful, give us grace to thank you. Now may healing flow from sorrow, hope emerge from darkness, and memories become even more precious, so that past, present, and future may be as one in the mystery of God's love. And let us say, Amen. Our tradition teaches us death is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest is better than constant sickness. Let us not seek to understand what is too difficult for us, nor search for what is hidden. Nor be preoccupied with what is beyond, for we have been shown more than we can comprehend. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, are our few days in eternity. The good things in life last for a short time, but a good reputation endures forever. At this time, I invite Raquel and Micah Feuerzeig to come up here and share a poem with us.
this one? Okay. Death is Nothing at All by Henry Scott Holland. Death is nothing at all. It does not count. I have only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened.
Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I, and you are you. And the old life that we have lived so fondly together is untouched and unchanged. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still.
Call me by the old familiar name. Speak of me in the easy way which you always use. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow.
Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes that we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever in the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without an effort, without the ghost of a shadow upon it.
Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is absolute and unbroken continuity. What is this death but a negligible accident?
Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am waiting for you for an interval, somewhere very near, just round the corner.
All is well. Nothing is hurt. Nothing is lost. One brief moment. And all will be as it was before. How we shall laugh at the trouble of parting when we meet again.
Eternal God, source of all being and fountain of life, what can we say to you? You see and know all things. In your wisdom, you formed the universe, and in your love, you provided for all your creatures. What can we do but acknowledge your power, accept your gifts with gratitude, and according to your will, give back your own? The Eternal redeems the life of his servants. None of those who take refuge in him will be condemned. And Psalm 15. God, who may abide in your house? Who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless, but honor those who revere God, who give their word, and, come what may, do not retract, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken.
Adonai is my shepherd, I have all I need. I rest in green meadows and beside peaceful streams. and each step of the way He leads me. He restores my soul. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid. I'll not be afraid, for He is always close beside me. I will not be afraid. Adonai is my shepherd, He's preparing a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. He leads me, He restores my soul. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid. I'll not be afraid, for He is always close beside me. I will not be afraid. Adonai is my shepherd, my cup overflows. His love and His goodness follow me where I go. He leads me, He restores my soul, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord
I invite Shane Brunt to come and share a reading he has adapted, especially for Hank.
Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep by Mary Elizabeth Fry, with a few minor edits by me for my friend, my uncle, Hank. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 horns that blow at carnival. I am the diamond glints on the waves at Megan's. I am the sunlight on rolling fairways and greens. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I did not die.
I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. Adonai is your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, and nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard your going and coming now and forever. And at this time, I would like to ask George Dudley to join us here. It's for the eulogy and personal reflections.
I'm not being irreverent, nor am I being disrespectful, but I had to wear a hang tie. I must begin by thanking Penny for introducing me to her husband 50 years ago. When I moved back home in 1975, my stepfather, Ariel Melchior Sr., then owner of the Virgin Islands Daily News, assigned his best reporter to interview Adrian and me about my return home, our upcoming marriage, and my decision to practice law in the Virgin Islands and not remain on the mainland. Penny was a very good reporter, and frankly, was a little annoyed that her boss had assigned her to write what could only be described as a puff piece for the society pages of the Daily News. Nevertheless, Penny did as she was instructed and dutifully interviewed Adrian and me for the article published in the Daily News. When Penny went home that evening, she told Hank about Adrian and me and suggested that they meet us. A couple of days later, I met Hank, and then what grew into a close and enduring friendship that lasted more than 50 years. 2 years after our meeting, Hank and his then law partner, John Zebedee, invited me to become a partner in the firm of Feuerzeig and Zebedee. After thinking about it for a couple of weeks, I decided I would join them in the practice of law. The three of us met for lunch for me to advise them of my decision. But before I could say anything, Hank said to me that he had to tell me something. However, he did not want what he was about to tell me to affect my decision. At that point, he told me he had received a telephone call the night before from Vern Hodge, who called Hank to inform him that Governor Cyril King wanted to appoint Hank to the municipal court. Hank decided to accept. So in October 1976, Hank told me he was leaving Feuerzeig and Zebedee at the end of the year. Then he asked me, what had I decided to do about joining the firm? After a minute to absorb Hank's news, I told them that I had decided to leave Born, Finucane, and Bruno at the end of the year to join them, now John, as a law partner. I inherited Hank's law practice and frankly spent an unanticipated year as a trial lawyer when I was really cut out to be a business lawyer. After one professionally successful but personally miserable year engaged in a practice I did not enjoy, John and I parted company at the end of 1997, and in January 1978, I started the law firm that is today known as Dudley, Newman, and Feuerzeig, DNF. I honestly don't know when DNF became the largest law firm in the Virgin Islands, but I do know the precise day We became the best firm in the territory. That day was May 1st, 1987, the day I won the Hank Feuerzig sweepstakes. Hank retired from the bench and became my law partner. A partnership 10 years delayed in the making, but lasting more than 35 years. Hank and I made a great team. As the business lawyer, I got our clients into trouble, and Hank, as the great trial lawyer, got our clients out of trouble. But more than professional colleagues, Hank and I were friends. We genuinely enjoyed each other's company. We had lunch together virtually every weekday and frequently on weekends, but the weekends included our wives. Penny and Susan assumed that weekday lunch discussions were about law and the law firm, but the reality was that the law and the law firm were the topics we discussed least frequently. We commiserated on the challenges Hank had had with his son Paul and the challenges I was having with my son BJ. We reveled in the successes of our daughters, Darcy and Beryl, but despaired about how they both felt neglected for being the good child. We discussed life in general. We talked sports. Hank was a die-hard Chicago Cubs fan, and I lived in New York Yankees blue and white pinstripes. We talked local and national politics and other stuff. Having both lived in Washington, D.C. and attending George Washington University at the same time without knowing each other, we both were fans of the Washington Redskins, now Commanders. We even went to the Super Bowl together when Washington played the Denver Broncos in 1988. Hank had a wonderful sense of humor, which could be mischievous. One time when Hank and Penny, Tom and Chris Brunt, and Susan and I were traveling together in Israel. It was a Saturday when we visited the city of Hebron in Palestine, where the prophet Abraham is buried. The burial site is considered holy by Muslims, Jews, and Christians alike. Abraham's tomb in Hebron has two sides and two entrances, one used by Muslims and a second used by Jews and Christians. In order to visit the site, we told our guide that Hank was a senator from the United States. We were allowed to enter the site from the Hebrew Christian side, but when we tried to visit the Muslim side, we were stopped by a Muslim cleric because we were told the religious ceremony was in progress on the Muslim side, which could not be disturbed. After trying to gain entrance for several minutes, we finally gave up, and as we departed, Hank turned to the Muslim cleric and said, "Shabbat Shalom." For the non-Jews here today, Shabbat Shalom is a common Hebrew greeting meaning peaceful Sabbath, and a phrase not frequently used on the Muslim side of the tomb. Our guide was not too pleased, but Hank thought it was hilarious. Hank not only had a wonderful sense of humor, he was wicked smart, a tireless advocate on behalf of his clients, and an indefatigable supporter of public and community causes, the causes in which he believed. We always knew when Rotary and the synagogue was having a fundraiser because Hank went around the law firm selling raffle tickets, and telling Hank no when he came to sell a ticket was not an option. He spent countless hours as a founding and later emeritus director of the Community Foundation of the Virgin Islands, contributing his time and talents to making the Virgin Islands a better place and to raise children. Hank did not just embrace life, he grabbed it by the throat and lived life to the fullest. Hank was born in Chicago on the proverbial wrong side of the tracks. Hank's father was a compulsive gambler, frequently out of work and routinely out of the house. And Hank and his older brother Bernard were left to be raised by a single mother in a Chicago housing project. To make money, Hank worked as a caddy worked as a caddy at a nearby golf course. And because he was both a good caddy and a good student, Hank was named an Evans Scholar and received a 4-year college scholarship for full tuition and room and board, which was awarded to youngsters who had worked as a golf caddy in high school. Hank also was a wrestler in high school. However, when his knees gave out from the injuries suffered from wrestling, they had to be replaced. Most people have their knees replaced one at a time. Hank had both knees replaced at the same time. And when he was cleared by his doctor to return to the office, we were prepared to give him an office on the first floor near the entrance to the office. Hank rejected the idea and insisted that he would walk up the stairs to go to his office on the second floor. He climbed up and down those stairs every day. When we went out to lunch, he came up and down the stairs to accompany me to lunch. When he was in the office, you could set your watch by the walk Hank took around the floor every hour to exercise his knees. I want to spend a minute to talk about Hank and his relationship with Penny. The two of them were a power couple, to be sure. Penny, the successful executive editor of the territory's largest newspaper, and Hank, a name partner and the senior litigator in the territory's largest law firm. But they got their real power from each other. Theirs was a relationship of mutual respect, mutual support, and tremendous love. An enduring love affair between them that anyone could plainly see. For more than 58 years, Penny never left his side and helped him to make every important decision that Hank had to make. For his part, Hank was Penny's touchstone and compass. It was a truly spectacular relationship that all of us who knew them could only marvel about. Whether it was dancing together at a social function, engaging in animated discussions about politics, or some recent dinner event for 4 or 40, they plainly enjoyed each other's company, and the joy between them was contagious to those of us who were lucky enough to witness it. In 2022, during the pandemic, when it became time for Hank to retire from the practice of law at the age of 83, I discussed the matter first with Penny and Darcy. The next day, Hank and I were having lunch together in one of the law firm's conference rooms, just the two of us. And I told him that it was time for him to hang up his spurs. He looked at me hard for a long time, and then he said quietly, "You're right." There was no protest, no debate, no discussion just a discussion about the process. And with his usual discipline and care, Hank went about resigning from the VI bar, notifying clients that he was retiring, advising those clients who would be taking his place, handling their matters, and making sure his files were fully organized for another lawyer to take over. After he retired, Hank and I still found time to have lunch together. Perhaps not every day, but several days during the week, every week. And like those years we had lunch together during our 35-year partnership, we did not discuss the law firm or the practice of law. Our conversations centered mostly on our grandchildren. The fact that he had lived long enough to see his beloved Cubs win the World Series, including a cherished trip with his son-in-law, Aaron, to see the final 2 games of the series. The race for governor between Bryan and VLA, and other matters of everyday life between long-term friends. Years ago, Hank and I attended the funeral service for Everett Birch in this synagogue. The following day at lunch, I don't know how the topic came up, but I remember our discussion that one day, one of us would be standing either in the pulpit at All Saints Cathedral or in this bema talking about the other's life and what it had been like to be friends for a very long time and to have shared a professional life together. I was convinced it would be Hank talking at my funeral. I simply could not believe that I would outlive the bionic man, the irrepressible persona that was Hank Feuerzeig. Today, I am forced to acknowledge that the duty has fallen to me. However, I reject the notion that Hank is gone. His legacy will live on through his daughter Darcy. It will live on through his grandchildren Addison, Micah, and Kai. It will live on in the history books of the Virgin Islands, recounting his remarkable professional achievements and personal contributions as a member of this community. He was a true Virgin Islander in a community he loved. His legacy will live on in the memories of those of us who knew and loved him, and his memory will be a blessing.
Thank you. I would like to ask if Addison Cody would join us up here to share a poem.
When Great Trees Fall by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. Sorry, guys. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes, briefly, see with hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the utterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us. They existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed.
I'd like for Tommy Brunt to come up and offer some remarks and reflections on behalf of the younger generation.
Good morning, everyone. Wow. This is everybody that I know in my life, all in one room. I was asked to speak on behalf of Penny, Darcy, Aaron, Addison, Paul, Raquel, Micah, and Kai, as this is still so raw and emotional for everyone. I'm not so sure I'm going to manage this myself without getting verklempt. These are my recollections from a distant past, and I may not have all of the details correct, but the spirit behind them is accurate. I will do my best to not utter anything inappropriate in the synagogue, but I ask you to feel free in your head to expand on my acronyms or fill in the blanks where needed. The Brunt and Feuerzeig family became intertwined a long time ago. My dad was renovating the AG's library, I think it was the AG's library, and a protruding nail on his job site managed to snag and tear Hank's only suit. This was not the most auspicious start to a relationship, but somehow Hank and my father managed to navigate that moment with a grace and a tact that frankly neither probably had at that stage of their lives. And probably a friendship between Hank and Penny and my parents was born that quickly evolved into our families having dinner on what felt like a weekly basis. I remember dinners at the old Kumwa restaurant in Estate Content. As an aside, it does feel a bit cliche for us to have had Chinese every Friday after the Feuerzeigs were done at the synagogue. Those dinners form some of my earliest memories. Hank and Penny and my parents were all liberal in their thinking, and yet somehow they managed to argue. I remember falling asleep spread out on the chairs as they heatedly argued some nuanced point about a political issue that they were essentially on the same side of. It is not often that you find young children embarrassed by their parents' behavior in a restaurant. Often, when Hank tired of an argument or if it had run its course, he would end the discussion by yelling, "BS!" On the subject of cursing, Hank was a very creative man. I have many memories of Hank driving Paul, Darcy, Shane, and me to school each morning. It was always an interesting ride and adventure. A memory that sticks out to me the most is us riding in the back of the car listening to him, "F this and F that," and yell "idiot" or "stupid schmuck" at almost every passing vehicle. In my mind's eye, I still see him leaning out of the car, both hands decidedly off the wheel, double middle fingers raised high at someone yelling, "F you!" and a nearby pedestrian waving at him saying, "Hi, Judge!" I am told that at a very young age of 7 or 8, I was wandering around one of Jim Armour's job sites with my dad while Jim was courting a potential stateside investor. The investor's wife apparently kept grabbing me and pulling me back from this or that precipice, and I finally tired of this and yelled, "Take your effing hands off me." As I look back at the timing, it seems about right. I had indeed learned plenty from Hank. Dana, as an aside, I have no idea if your dad landed that investor or not, and if he didn't, that was clearly Hank's fault. Just saying. When Darcy called me Tuesday to tell me the news that Hank had passed, P and I, with our family, were on a jet pulling back from a gate. We did not have the time for a deep conversation and to share our heavy hearts, but as our plane taxied, I did a search for photos on my phone of Hank and found so many wonderful moments to reflect on. The heated Scrabble games after dinner or backgammon games at Megan's. Hank at the head of the table carving Penny's roast chicken. St. Bart's brunches that went on for hours where Hank and Mike Martin would debate the finer points of the ultimate chocolate dessert and the pros and cons of a prenup. Him stumbling out of a bedroom door with his sleep mask askew and away from his eyes because we had woken him from a much-needed nap with our loud laughter and play. I remember with some delight and trepidation his perm hairdo phase. I don't have any idea how long that lasted, but that fro seemed to have a life of its own. It was epic. The insane ties he wore with his suits. Frankly, I'm not sure if he got this from George or if Hank rubbed off on George, but clearly there was an arms race going on in the DTF office. Thanks for representing, George. The annual gifting of pink pig paraphernalia was a tradition born by Dana between our families, and every year the Feuerzeigs would present our family with pink pig ornaments that they had found from all over the world in their travels. After the service, feel free to ask us the backstory. His signature sangria that needed a lot of taste testing prior to arriving at the carnival party at Frank's. All of these were amazing memories. Hank was not a perfect man. None of us are. While he was always present at dinner and milestone moments and family gatherings, as documented by the wonderful photos, I also remember the man that worked too much. Work was all-consuming, and it took its toll on him. I know that it weighed him down. In a recent conversation with Darcy, she told me something I don't think I ever knew about Hank, and if I did, I had forgotten it. He was the first in his family to go to college, and that was because of the Caddy scholarship that he had won. His need to work so hard was perhaps rooted in a need to be worthy of the opportunity he had been lucky enough to receive. That internal pressure to succeed never left, and he worked until he was 83. As Darcy noted, he wasn't on the golf course as often as he should have been. But watching Hank try and balance his work life and being a parent and a husband has taught me so much. His capacity to keep smiling and to keep moving forward despite life's ups and downs is a testament to his tenacity and discipline. His family was everything to him. Paul, who he loved dearly, presented Hank with many opportunities to grow. Shall we say Paul had a few false starts before he got it right. But through it all, I never saw Hank waver in trying to be there for Paul, even when it meant very tough parenting. As a parent myself, I can only imagine what those years must have been like for Hank and Penny. What struck me, though, is that when Paul finally got it right, Hank was still standing there by his side, beaming with pride. Raquel, I know that your relationship with Paul brought so much peace and comfort to Hank. The photos I have of the two of them at your wedding say everything. I remember a dinner with Darcy, Hank, and Penny in which the subject of marriage versus living with each other became a fierce debate between Hank and Darcy. Hank was very much the traditionalist and felt incredibly strongly that marriage offered protections to women that were critical. Darcy may have had reason to take the opposing position. What I remember most about that evening is while I had seen thousands of arguments between Hank and others, this was the first time I had seen it be personal for Hank. Aaron, all I'm saying is that it's good you made it official. Darcy, he deeply loved you and wanted to protect you at all costs. Aaron and Hank forged an incredibly close and beautiful relationship over the years. Aaron actually knew Hank longer than his own father, who unfortunately passed away when Aaron was in college. Although Hank could never replace Aaron's father, Hank embraced Aaron as a son. The warmth between the two of them was remarkable. Addison, Micah, and Kai, your grandpa loved you. Hank was often on the floor with you or bouncing you on his knee. I remember finally watching Hank walk hand in hand with Addison or Micah and Kai into brunch at Hook, Line, and Sinker on numerous occasions. Watching Hank with his grandchildren revealed a deep contentment and happiness with life. Penny, almost every photo I have of Hank has you standing side by side, smiling happily together. There are videos and photos of the two of you dancing on the street during Carnival and at New Year's parties in Frenchtown and at our homes. You were known to dance in restaurants next to your table if the music was right and the mood struck you. You would often walk hand in hand down the street. You were inseparable. You were each other's best friend for 58 years. Your life with Hank and your children and grandchildren are a testament to your love for each other. I know this is hard, but you are surrounded by the community that you and Hank nurtured and built for yourselves. Hank was bigger than life. He was sharp and did not suffer fools gladly. He was disciplined and diligent. He was an ethical, caring, and content man that loved his family, friends, and community. This community. This outpouring of love. He believed that he would live on through the lives that he touched. He made my family part of his family, as he did with Aaron and Raquel and countless others. He walked through tough things with his chin held high and a sparkle in his eye, and I will miss him tremendously. His was a worthy life. Zikrono Livraka. May his memory be a blessing.
As I mentioned earlier, Rabbi Margolis is out of country, and she regrets very much not being here with everyone, with the family, and everyone else who's here today. She has sent this message. It's hard to put into words how deeply heartbroken I feel over losing Hank. Many knew him as Judge Feuerzeig, a brilliant legal mind, a man of integrity and a pillar of this community. But to those of us who really knew him, he was just Hank, warm, generous, funny, and full of heart, a true mensch in every sense of the word. I only had the privilege of knowing Hank for 2.5 years, but in that short time, he and Penny became so much more than congregants. They became my island family. Hank welcomed me with open arms, quite literally. I'll miss those big hugs and kisses on the cheek every time he saw me. I'll miss his smile from their seat during services. It's hard to imagine the sanctuary without him in it. To Penny and Darcy, I sent all my love and my deepest condolences. I know how much Hank adored you both, and I know this loss is immeasurable. Hank lived his values with kindness, humility, and quiet strength. He served this island, this congregation, and everyone around him with a full and generous heart. May his memory be a blessing, a comfort, and a guiding light. And may those who mourn him be comforted among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Baruch Dayan Emet. Rest in peace, dear Hank. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai Natan v'Adonai Laka, Yehe Shem Adonai Mevurah. God has given and God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. An ancient people, we are well acquainted with grief and with the valley of shadows. Death and sorrow are not strangers to us, yet the centuries have taught us that a good name endures beyond the grave and that there is strength in faith. May the Holy One of Blessing, from whom all things come and to whom all things return, give the family light and peace. And on this day of grief and mourning, and may our service bring comfort and strength to Hank's family and friends. Zichrono livracha, may his memory be for a blessing. We'll have a short moment of silent prayer before we continue. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. At this time, I'd like everybody to rise for a prayer called El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shokein Bamromim, Hamse Menucha Al Kanfei HaShekinah B'Ma'alot Kedushim Tehurim Kezohar Harakia Mazirihim et Nishmat Henry L. Feuerzeig Shelachuto La'almo Bagan Eden Tehe Menuchato Ana Baal Harakamim Yastirenu Beseter Kenafav Leolamin Vitzror Betisror Hayim et Nishmato Adonai hu nakalato v'yanalku al mishkavo b'shalom v'enomar amen. God of abundant mercy and God most high, grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of your presence with the holy and pure on high, who shine as the lights of heaven, to Henry L. Feuerzig, who has gone to his eternal home. Source of mercy, cover him in the shelter of your wings forever, and bind his soul into the gathering of life. It is God who is his heritage, and may he be at peace in his place of rest. And let us say, Amen. Okay. This concludes our service. We will make our way down to the Altona Cemetery, where parking is on the street. Thank you.
That's all.